Once you start doing the inner work, you start facing a lot of things that are not comfortable, what some people call your inner demons. And it's not nice. It is scary. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And the majority of people are not okay with that. No one likes to live in discomfort, but discomfort is necessary for growth. Hello, friend. Welcome back to the Awakened Entrepreneur Show. I am Juan Galan, your host. And today, I want to share with you one of my biggest lessons, not only in my entrepreneurial journey, but in life. And that is the importance of doing the inner work. What is the inner work? In case you don't know, I'm going to be sharing everything with you today, so stay tuned. And I want to start by, as always, sharing a story of my personal journey that made me realize the importance of doing the inner work if you want to grow not only a successful, but a sustainable business that feels good, that feels aligned, that gives you joy. So I'm going to take you back to 2021, which is when I first started my business, the IG Creator Academy. Many of you know me from back then. It's just so crazy how much I have grown and evolved in the past 4 years as an entrepreneur. I truly believe that entrepreneurship is the best personal growth or personal development school that you can ever enroll into, because it's gonna bring out a lot of fears, a lot of traumas, a lot of things that you might not even be aware of, but that needed to be brought out so that you can continue your evolution and your growth journey. And that is exactly what doing the inner work is. It's facing all of these things that we've kept inside for so long and that actually developed, most of them, not all of them, as we were childs. So when I started my business, I thought I had it all figured out. And something that I have to admit is that back then, it was very superficial. I was definitely not doing any inner work. I had never done any inner work. And by superficial, I mean that I really focused on looking after my physique. So I worked out a lot. I looked after myself. I ate healthy just because I wanted to look good. And now, before you say anything, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. Actually, nowadays, I still do this, but I do it with a different approach. This is the temple of God, and the more that I look after myself internally and externally, the better life I will live, right? But back then, that was not the case. And the whole reason for this is that I grew up being bullied in high school. So I never felt like I belonged. I was always thinking that there was something wrong with me, and I never felt confident. I lacked a lot of self-worth, and I brought that into my adult life and also into my business. So why was I so focused on looking good, being in shape, being attractive? Because I thought that if I looked that way, I was finally going to be seen. I was finally going to be accepted by those who rejected me back in high school. But this superficiality was also brought into my business. So as my business started to grow and succeed, that's all I focused on. I was really focused on the superficial aspect, the vanity metrics. How many followers was I growing? How many views was I getting? How many likes? How many sales, right? And I completely ignored the most important part, which was what was happening inside of me, here and here, in case you're not watching the video, in my mind and in my heart. And that's how I started building my business. And obviously, when you build a business from superficiality, from this need to be validated and to be accepted, you're gonna start seeing cracks on the way. And that's exactly what I experienced. So after facing all of this high and success and really feeding my ego more and more, everything crashed down in 2022 when I went through a very hard breakup with my partner back then. We had been together for 4 years, and I really thought that he was going to be my life partner. But my life was completely shook when it ended very abruptly. And whether you want it or not, these things that you experience in life, whether it's in relationships or at work or anything that is not related to your business, will impact your business if you haven't been doing the inner work. And as I just said before, I wasn't doing it. So that moment brought a lot of awareness into my life. That was like the catalyst that made me realize, like, my God, I need to do something about this. I really hurt this person unconsciously, obviously, but that also shed a lot of light into all my flaws and some behaviors that I wasn't proud of, and fears that I wasn't really aware of, and traumas that were manifesting in things that I was doing or saying. So it was a very, very eye-opening moment. I call it my first awakening, and that's where my inner work started. The first thing I did was go to therapy. That was my first encounter with someone that really helped me open my eyes, my mind, and my heart. And something that I want to point out is that this breakup, this moment in my life, even though it had nothing to do with my business, it started affecting my business. As I've shared with you many times, 2023 was a year where things slowed down in my business, and it was a very hard year. But it all started in 2022 with this breakup. So I started doing therapy, and in therapy, we started doing journaling. And journaling was such a beautiful way to be able to get out of my head and express. Because most of the times we don't express what we're going through, we suppress it. And that is so dangerous, because if we keep suppressing things inside, it's like filling a cup of water. At some point, the water is gonna spill out. So journaling was a beautiful way for me to release all these things that I was going through and really observe them as well. It really, really helped me to learn more about myself. Then after journaling came meditation. I've talked about this multiple times, but meditation has been a game changer for me, because it allows me to get out of my head and be in complete stillness. And this is something that not a lot of people can do. But whenever I'm doing meditation and I'm like completely black, I'm not thinking about anything, I'm not feeling, I get out of my body and out of my mind, it feels so liberating. Therapy was that first door that led into other forms of inner work. Something that I realized was that the majority of people avoid doing the inner work. And I get it. It's not easy, because once you start doing the inner work, you start facing a lot of things that are not comfortable. And it's not nice. It is scary. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And the majority of people are not okay with that. No one likes to live in discomfort, but discomfort is necessary for growth. Even our bodies are wired to keep us in comfort. Our brains and our nervous systems will always try to keep us safe, even if that safeness means living in fear or living a lie, because that's what you've been used to, and that's what they see as your comfort zone, as what's normal, as what's safe. But part of doing the inner work is rewiring your whole nervous system and reprogramming it with true safety. And all these techniques that I've been sharing with you, the journaling, the therapy, the meditation, are beautiful ways of letting go of those programs that keep you stuck in the same place, in your comfort zone, and that stop you from actually doing the inner work, from growing internally, so that your external environment can also evolve and change. Now, I do have to admit that I have been on this inner work journey for years, and I do believe that is something that will never end, because the moment that you step into your next level, you will 100% unlock new fears that come from traumas you weren't even aware of. And this is a never-ending process. If you want to grow and evolve as a person, and if you want to have a business that grows with you, this is something that you cannot avoid. Another thing that was a game changer for me was reconnecting with God. And again, if you don't believe in God, that is fine, whether you believe in the universe or a higher power, but knowing that there's this divine, infinite, loving intelligence that is always looking after you and that has designed this beautiful path for you, the path that you're walking in, will always give you this sense of peace and freedom, because this just shows that you are exactly where you need to be right now. And everyone's healing journey will look completely different, but there's no need to rush it. So one of the things that I've noticed is that once you start getting into this whole thing of personal development and inner work, if you don't have some sort of anchor or grounding, for me is God, or you could be the universe, you're always going to be looking for the next thing and the next therapy and the next exercise and the next book, because you are doing it all by yourself. But when you release that and you trust that it's all happening for you, that it's all being taken care of, it changes everything. And that's what I experienced when I reconnected with God. And I started learning that no matter how hard I tried, if I didn't let go of the urgency, of the pressure, and the perfectionism, I was never going to be at peace. And peace is very important for your inner work journey. God has reminded me that my path is perfectly designed and that even all the mistakes that I do are part of this plan. And when I see it this way, it just makes life so much more beautiful. One of the biggest lessons in my inner work journey has been the realization that so many of these behaviors that I have stem from a wounded child. And it's really interesting because in this process, I have become aware of things that my mind had completely blocked, again, to protect me. But I had completely forgotten about things that I experienced as a 3-4-year-old little boy that really shaped my entire life and manifest my adult life through behaviors. Like, for example, recently, I went through a very intense emotional couple of weeks because I met someone who triggered in me these wounds that hadn't been healed that I had no idea about. And this is why I'm telling you that the inner work never ends, because I've been doing this inner work for so long, but then this person triggered me. And at first I was really hurt, but then I saw it as a clear sign from God that I still needed to do my work. And I was actually really grateful for this person for showing me these things, because it wasn't really this person's fault, it was mine. And it brought awareness to these wounds from little Juan that felt abandoned, that felt rejected, that felt betrayed. And now I have been able to work through these and heal these wounds. And the interesting part is that situation that I experienced not too long ago also affected my business. So the way that I was showing up changed, my energy changed, sales dropped again, I felt unmotivated, not because I wasn't enjoying my business, but because this whole situation and those wounds that I hadn't properly healed were somehow transmuting into my business. That's why I keep telling you, if you don't do the inner work, any crack that you have in the other area of your life is gonna end up showing up in your business. And one of the best ways to face these type of situations is to have compassion. And I know that sometimes having compassion for ourselves is hard because we feel guilty, because we feel like we did a mistake and we're not learning, because we feel frustrated. But something that I've learned is that if I can't have compassion for myself, at least I will have compassion for my inner child, for little Juan who was hurt. And that makes it so much easier and better when you have compassion for your inner child, because come on, who cannot have compassion for a little boy or a little girl, right? So I've started doing that and having more compassion for my inner child, even though those behaviors and situations are being manifested as an adult. But yes, compassion for your inner child really changes the way that you approach situations in your personal life. Now, if you are in a stage of your life where you haven't started doing the inner work, or maybe you have, but you feel like you're stuck or you are not doing that progress that you want, again, remember that there's no timelines. You are exactly where you need to be right now. So have some grace for yourself. But what I do want to say is that the journey always starts with self-awareness. And I believe that there's always a catalyst that helps you bring that self-awareness. For me, it was that breakup back in 2022 that made me realize that I needed to start making changes in my life, not only in my physical body, but in my mind, in my heart, in my spirit. But self-awareness is key. So again, if you are in that stage where you don't know the areas of your life that you need to heal, or where you need to do the inner work, or you've been stuck, I have a freebie for you in the show notes of the episode, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the description of the video. It's called a Business Mirror Self-Reflection Guide, and it's going to help you uncover where you might be internally misaligned with your business vision. And again, this goes beyond just business. What areas in your life need to be healed? What fears need to be faced? And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you need to go through that discomfort if you want to grow. Because if you're not growing internally, your business will reflect that. So before we go, I want you to stop and think for a second. Where am I being invited to grow now? Think about it. And friend, you've got this. Don't rush it. Don't put pressure on yourself. You're exactly where you need to be right now. You're beautiful, you're loved, you're perfect, you're worthy, and that's all you need to remember. Now, if you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, please give me a 5-star review. If you think this is worthy of a 5-star review, share this episode with someone else who might need it. Help me spread this message, because the more people start doing their inner work, the better this world will become. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to give those thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, share in the comments if you learned something new. Where in your inner work journey are you in? And I will see you next week for another episode. I love you and see you soon. Bye.